Whether we like it or not, the Game Awards is a massive part of gaming culture. Anytime something comes out that takes the gaming world by storm, you'll see a deluge of tweets saying, Game of the Year, Best Game Ever. It's a huge deal to even be nominated for the show. Your game is forever immortalized in history, and more importantly, on that year's Wikipedia page. Since the show started in 2014, many great games have been announced, nominated, and honored there. So it's been a little irritating for Xenoblade fans, seeing as the series has been all but ignored at the Game Awards every time a release comes around. People have even pointed fingers at Jeff Keighley himself for hating Xenoblade, and while I think that's a bit of a stretch, it's entirely possible that there actually is a bias against Xenoblade taking place each year at the Game Awards. Will Xenoblade 3 take the same path as the other games in the series? Let's find out. So why do people say that Xenoblade has been snubbed at the Game Awards so much? That's because it seemingly hasn't been nominated a single time. But actually, that's just not true. Xenoblade X was nominated for the 2016 Game Awards Best Role-Playing Game category, where it unfortunately lost to Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Now, if you know when X came out, that might sound weird, because it is. Xenoblade X released in Japan on April 29th, 2015, and the rest of the world on December 4th and 5th of 2015. Each year when the nominees are announced, they're accompanied with a cutoff date. Since Xenoblade X was released worldwide after that cutoff date, it was included in the next year's awards show. Another example of this was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Smash Ultimate was released on December 7th, 2018. This is almost 1 month after the November 16th cutoff date, so instead, it was nominated for the 2019 show. Xenoblade 2 was actually put in the same exact situation a year earlier, the only difference being that it was not nominated at all. This was a little strange considering that it was a pretty relevant release that year, but then again, a lot of RPGs did come out in 2019. Also that year, we had Torna of the Golden Country release on September 14th without a nomination. You might say that Torna shouldn't count since it's an expansion, but I would argue it's much more than that. It has a full retail release that can be purchased completely separate from base Xenoblade 2, both digitally and physically. And even if you don't like that argument, the Game Awards has just had expansions as nominees like Call of Duty Warzone, for example. I feel like most people could chalk up Xenoblade 2's situation to the circumstantial issues. It could have just been a fluke. It's possible a lot of people forgot about it, and admittedly, the game did have a bit of a shaky launch. Subsequent updates made the game loads and loads better. But when Xenoblade Definitive Edition didn't make the cut in 2020, many made their frustrations known. Although it was one of the 30 games in the running for the Player's Voice category, it did not make it to the final 5. It was also not included in the Best RPG category either, losing out to Final Fantasy VII Remake, Genshin Impact, Persona 5R, Wasteland 3, and Yakuza Like a Dragon. And before you say it's because Definitive Edition was a re-release or a remaster, I'm just gonna point right to Persona 5R. It is literally the same situation. 2020 wasn't a particularly great year for gaming overall, as I'm sure you're aware, so competition was certainly thinner than it usually is. A lot of the notable games released that year were just ports or even re-releases. Definitive Edition's release window also wasn't competing with any other major games at the time either. With all of this taken into account, why was DE overlooked in 2020? Well, the first thing we need to do is establish how Game Awards nominees are chosen and how a winner is decided. According to the organization themselves, quote, nominees are selected by an international jury of over 100 global media and influencer outlets. They have been selected for their history of critical evaluation of video games. Specialized juries also convened for other categories including esports and accessibility. Each voting outlet completes a confidential, unranked ballot based on the collective and diverse opinion of its entire editorial staff, listing out its top 5 choices in each category. Ballots are tabulated, and the 5 games that appear on the most ballots are put forth as nominees. In the event of a tie, 6 or more nominees will be announced in a category. Game Awards producer Jeff Keighley is not a member of the jury and does not vote on the nominees or the winners. End quote. After this, the winner is decided by a 90-10 split vote, with 90% of the vote coming from the media outlets and 10% coming from the public. They've explained that this is to prevent the winners from being affected by some influencer instructing their followers to vote for something. I get it, but I feel like gamers should have a much bigger voice than 10%. In my opinion, it should be something more akin to a 75-25 split. Anyway, this actually clears up a lot of stuff for us. Jeff himself doesn't actually select the nominees. I know, crazy, right? So we can stop quote retweeting this poor man now. Games are also not, in fact, chosen by a bunch of shady Xenoblade-hating businessmen in a secret boardroom. They're chosen by a bunch of shady Xenoblade-hating game journalists playing on the easy difficulty. Jokes aside, we're given a pretty clear look at the process. Now, what I was going to do was look at gaming outlets on the jury list found on the website and check to see how they rated all the nominees for Best RPG, but they updated the site right as I was writing the script for this video, and my attempts to use the Wayback Machine were unsuccessful. What fun. If Xenoblade 3 isn't included in the 2022 Game Awards, I do intend to make a follow-up video to this where I actually pore over the review data and see how the media may have voted, so let me know if that's something you want to see. However, I'm going to be completely transparent and say that even if I do that, I could still be completely inaccurate because these media outlets just have one person review the game, and that is not necessarily reflective of the entire organization's thoughts. But anyway, if this explanation is to be believed, then in order for this Xenoblade bias at the Game Awards to actually be real, the Game Awards themselves would have to be actively removing it from the nominations and essentially ignoring the votes. Realistically, what reason would they have for specifically targeting the Xenoblade series? There are tons of games that probably deserve to be at the Game Awards, but just haven't been nominated. A much more likely and reasonable scenario is that not enough media outlets nominated it. We can't absolutely be sure though. I also want to mention that there are several other categories that the Xenoblade games could fall into, like Best Soundtrack or even Best Art Direction. I'm just focusing on Best RPG since it's a much more broad category. I can go to a site like GameSpot and see how the game itself is rated, but not specifically how the soundtrack is rated, you know? The previously mentioned Player's Voice category is another good option. 30 games are initially nominated and subsequently narrowed down to 5 through a bracket, and then a winner is chosen during a final vote. This category is 100% up to the public. This means if Xenoblade 3 is on the list this year, we really need to make an effort to get it through that bracket. So if the Game Awards really was hell-bent on keeping Xenoblade out of the show, including it in the pool of candidates really isn't the best way to do that. I will admit though, if they were orchestrating a secret plot, a move like this would definitely throw us all off the scent. See, we really do care about Xenoblade. Oops, sorry, it didn't make the cut. Better luck next time. Something else super odd about the Best RPG category in 2020 is one of the nominations, a game called Wasteland 3. Now, I have no opinion on Wasteland 3, I've never played the game, I've seen 2 minutes of footage, I'm sure it's good and I'm not trying to compare it to Xenoblade DE. This is also in no way an objective point, just a personal one. What is Wasteland 3 doing here? Was anybody talking about this game? Is this really genre defining? Is it truly more deserving of the spot in Best RPG over Xenoblade Definitive? I don't know. If you've played it, let me know what you think because I'm very curious. Again, I am not at all attacking Wasteland 3, I just have never heard of this game before. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether or not Xenoblade 3, or any Xenoblade game for that matter, gets nominated to the Game Awards. In the end, not every game can make it in. The gaming industry is huge, and not every single outstanding game can be recognized on the world stage. That right is given only to a select few, chosen by people who have very different opinions of what makes a good game at the very least. Being at the Game Awards is a huge honor, but it's not the end-all, be-all authority on games. The more you look at the facts, the less it seems like a grand conspiracy against Xenoblade is taking place. In fact, I might go as far to say that we're the ones with a bias, specifically for Xenoblade. To be completely honest, even I thought that something fishy was going on before I made this video. Special thanks to all of my channel members, and super special thanks to Play, Parker Chase, and Polygloom, who are legendary Blade members. With that being said, Chef better nominate Xenoblade 3, or else I'm making a follow-up video. Okay, bye.